You won't believe the twists and turns that Kenan Thompson's life took. You probably know him as that funny guy from Saturday Night Live and the face behind the unforgettable character in Good Burger, but there's more to his story than just comedy sketches. Let me tell you, the drama behind Kenan's rise to fame is nothing like you'd expect. And trust me, this story is far from what you think you know. It all starts back in the 90s. Kenan Thompson, a child star at the time, seemed to have everything: fame, money, and the world at his feet. His journey began on Nickelodeon, where he was a breakout star with All That and the hilarious duo Kenan and Kel. From the outside, it looked like life was smooth sailing. But things were far from perfect. Kenan's career path would soon take a crazy turn, filled with shady deals and personal betrayals that would make you question everything you thought you knew about Hollywood. The craziest part, it all started with an accountant. You would think someone in Kenan's position, fresh off a major TV gig, would have their financial affairs in check. Well, guess what? That's where the trouble began. Kenan's mom, trying to protect her son from the pressures of money management, trusted someone to handle his finances. This guy seemed like the perfect fit. After all, he had already helped the family with taxes. What could go wrong? But let me tell you, this is where it gets interesting. What Kenan didn't know was that this trusted accountant wasn't who he claimed to be. Fast forward to the late 90s, and Kenan's world was turned upside down. His so-called trusted accountant was given power of attorney over his money, and things quickly spiraled out of control. Kenan soon realized that his hard-earned millions were disappearing faster than he could blink. He had no idea how it happened or where it went, but that accountant had been draining his bank account without a care in the world. So how does someone lose $1.5 million? How does that even happen? Kenan had no clue. One moment, everything was fine. The next, his financial world was crashing down. You have to understand, Kenan wasn't some grown man handling his own business at the time. He was just a kid, still figuring out the adult world, and his mom, doing her best to protect him, was completely blindsided by this disaster. It turns out this accountant wasn't just irresponsible, he was a straight-up thief. Kenan soon learned the shocking truth. All that money he had worked for, the fame, the success, it was all slipping away, and there was nothing he could do about it. It didn't help that the IRS was knocking on his door, demanding taxes that he thought were already taken care of. Can you imagine being in Kenan's shoes? He had done everything right, worked hard, achieved fame, and thought he had the right people by his side. But this betrayal, it hit hard. And guess what? The guy wasn't even able to pay back what he owed. That's right, Kenan sued him, and even though he won, it was all for nothing. The accountant was broke, and Kenan didn't see a single dime of the money he'd lost. But here's where it gets wild. Instead of letting this financial disaster crush him, Kenan did something most people would never be able to do. He picked himself back up. It wasn't easy, though. He went from being a child star on Nickelodeon to struggling to make ends meet. That's right, he went from fame to barely being able to pay rent. The money was gone, and the Hollywood world wasn't exactly lining up to hand him new opportunities. But Kenan wasn't about to let this setback define him. So he decided to get back to basics. He knew he had to prove that he was more than just the kid from All That and Good Burger. This was his moment to break free from being pigeonholed. But let me tell you, this was not going to be an easy road. It wasn't like Kenan just walked onto a movie set and became a star again. Nope. Hollywood had moved on, and so had the fans. They remembered him as the goofy kid from Nickelodeon, and they couldn't see him as anything more. But Kenan wasn't going to let that stop him. So there Kenan was, back at square one, facing the harsh reality of the entertainment world. No one was handing him roles, and Hollywood didn't seem to care about his past successes. The kid who once had a legion of fans was now struggling to even get a call back. But Kenan was determined. He was ready to fight for his place in the industry, and that fight would take him down a path that nobody expected. Instead of chasing the same type of roles that had made him famous, Kenan decided to reinvent himself. He didn't want to be just the funny guy with the quirky voice and goofy humor. He needed something bigger, something that would show the world that he was capable of more. And that's when he set his sights on something unexpected: Saturday Night Live. Getting onto SNL wasn't easy. The show had been around for decades, and it wasn't a place where you could just walk in and get a spot. Many actors and comedians had auditioned year after year only to be turned away. But Kenan had something they didn't expect. He had experience. Years of sketch comedy under his belt from his time on All That, and his own comedy show, Kenan and Kel, made him stand out. He wasn't just a funny kid, he was a professional. In 2003, after years of rejection and struggles, Kenan finally got the call. He was going to be on Saturday Night Live. But the excitement didn't last long. You'd think that landing such a big gig would be a dream come true, but for Kenan, it was more complicated. The pressure was immense. SNL had a legacy, and everyone who stepped on that stage had to prove themselves worthy of the spot. Kenan wasn't sure if he could do it. Could he really become a part of this iconic show? Would the audience accept him, or would he be just another cast member trying to live up to expectations? The first year was tough. Kenan had to find his footing, dealing with the weight of the show's massive history while trying to carve out his own identity. He wasn't the typical SNL star, the young, edgy comedian, or the already established name. He was still the guy people remembered from All That. That could have easily been a disadvantage, but Kenan had one thing that most people didn't: resilience. He kept pushing forward, staying true to himself, and gradually winning over the audience. But here's the thing about Kenan: he didn't just rely on his previous fame. He worked hard, he showed up early, stayed late, and honed his craft. Slowly, his presence on SNL grew stronger. His impressions were spot on, his sketches got funnier, and he became a key player on the show. His time on SNL wasn't just about making people laugh. It was his chance to prove to himself and to the world that he was more than just a child star. He was a force to be reckoned with. However, despite the success and recognition, something else was brewing beneath the surface. Even as Kenan gained fame again, this time as a seasoned performer on one of the biggest stages in comedy, his personal life wasn't as smooth as his career. Behind the bright lights of SNL, Kenan was facing challenges that were just as big, if not bigger, than the financial troubles he had left behind. He was still trying to rebuild his life after everything he'd lost, and that wasn't an easy feat. The stress of it all started to take a toll. His confidence had taken a hit after the financial disaster, and the constant pressure of being in the spotlight made him question whether he was truly happy or just chasing the next big thing. Was his career really what he wanted, or was he just trying to escape the ghosts of his past mistakes? This inner turmoil was something Kenan had to face head on, while also battling the expectations of the public and the relentless scrutiny that came with being on one of the most famous TV shows of all time. But in the middle of it all, something remarkable happened. Kenan realized that he didn't need to be anyone else. He didn't have to chase the fame of his childhood. He didn't have to be defined by the past. He started embracing who he was in that moment: an adult, a professional comedian, and a man who had faced unimaginable struggles and come out the other side stronger. The audience saw that shift too. They didn't just see the kid who had been on Nickelodeon years ago. They saw someone who had worked hard, fought for his place, and truly earned the respect he now had. At that moment, Kenan didn't just redeem himself in Hollywood. He redeemed himself in his own eyes. The road to getting there wasn't easy, and the battles along the way were never simple. But Kenan Thompson had finally proven that he could survive in this industry. Years went by, and Kenan's time on SNL became more than just a successful career chapter. It turned into a legacy. With every skit, every impression, he solidified his place as one of the most beloved comedians of his generation. But still, something was tugging at him from deep within. Even though he had achieved professional success and found a comfortable space in the comedy world, Kenan knew there was more to his story. Something was missing. He had everything that most people dream of: fame, recognition, and a steady career on a top-tier show. But there was still a sense of emptiness, a part of him that was unsure if he had truly found his purpose. The struggle to reclaim his life and rebuild from the rubble of his past mistakes had been long and painful, but it also shaped him into a stronger and more thoughtful person. However, the lingering question of, "Is this it?" kept echoing in his mind. Then came the moment of clarity. Kenan realized that he had spent so many years being in the spotlight, performing for others, that he had forgotten to focus on himself. He had worked hard to build a career, but at what cost? His personal life had been swept under the rug, and he hadn't given himself the space to process everything that had happened in his life. The struggles, the failures, the losses, they were all still there, lingering in the background. Kenan started to pull back a little from the hectic pace of his work life, trying to rediscover who he was outside of the spotlight. For the first time in years, he took time for himself to think about his journey and to find some balance. It wasn't easy. Being on SNL was demanding, and the pressure never truly let up. But he knew that in order to be the best version of himself, he needed to step away from the constant grind and reassess. This period of reflection led him to something unexpected. Instead of focusing only on his career, Kenan began to place more importance on his relationships. He had always been a private person when it came to his personal life, but as he matured, he understood that the people around him were just as important, if not more, than the public's perception of him. He started to open up more to his family, his friends, and those who had been there for him through thick and thin. The more time he spent with those who truly cared about him, the more Kenan realized the importance of his own happiness. He could keep chasing after bigger roles, larger paychecks, and the next project, but if he didn't take care of his heart, none of that would matter. This realization was powerful, and it shifted his mindset in ways he hadn't expected. Kenan had spent years trying to outrun his past, but now he was ready to embrace it. He was no longer trying to be someone else. He was ready to be the man he had become, with all his flaws, imperfections, and successes. This shift wasn't just an emotional breakthrough, it was a professional one too. Kenan's work began to reflect this new perspective. His performances on SNL became even more relatable, authentic, and deeply funny. People didn't just laugh at his jokes, they felt a connection with him. His work wasn't just about entertaining anymore, it was about sharing a piece of himself with the world. Whether it was through a quirky character or a heartfelt skit, Kenan's vulnerability and authenticity began to shine through. It wasn't just comedy for the sake of comedy. It was comedy with a purpose. But there was another side to Kenan's reinvention. He wasn't just sticking to comedy. As his career evolved, so did his creative ambitions. He wanted to do more. And while SNL remained a massive part of his life, Kenan began exploring opportunities outside of the show. He wanted to branch out, to prove that he wasn't just a sketch performer, but someone who could take on a wider variety of roles and maybe even direct or produce one day. His experience as an actor had shown him the limits of being pigeonholed into one type of role. Now, he was ready to break free from those boundaries. This desire for growth led him to new opportunities in television and film, where Kenan could take on more complex, nuanced characters. His time on SNL had made him an even stronger performer, and as he ventured into new projects, he brought that newfound depth and range with him. His work was no longer limited to one style of humor. He was evolving, constantly seeking new challenges to push himself further. And just when it seemed like he had it all figured out, life threw another curveball his way. Kenan had always been driven, but now that he had achieved the stability and recognition he craved, he realized something even more important. Finding happiness wasn't a destination, it was a process. The internal struggle of balancing his personal life with his public persona was something that would always be a work in progress. And as he moved forward, Kenan would face even more challenges, but he was ready. As time went on, Kenan's life started to settle into a rhythm. But just when he thought he had everything under control, life surprised him once again. While his career was flourishing and he had come to terms with his past, Kenan still faced moments of uncertainty, especially in his personal life. It was during these quiet moments of reflection that Kenan realized the biggest lesson he had learned. The pursuit of happiness is ongoing, and it's okay to not have all the answers. The unexpected changes in his career, his relationships, and his own self-awareness led him to a profound realization. True success wasn't measured by the number of awards or the number of laughs he could get from an audience. Success was about finding peace with oneself and learning how to balance personal and professional life. He had spent so many years looking for external validation, but the key to his happiness had always been within himself. This realization didn't mean Kenan had reached perfection. He was still a work in progress, and his journey was far from over. But what he had found through years of trial and error was that the real magic in life came from the moments of quiet understanding, the moments where he could pause and appreciate how far he had come. No longer was he obsessed with achieving more for the sake of external recognition. Now, he focused on the things that truly mattered, the connections with those around him, the relationships he had built over the years, and most importantly, the deep respect he had learned to cultivate for himself. Kenan's career also shifted. It was no longer about chasing every opportunity, but choosing the projects that truly resonated with him. He began to step into roles that felt more aligned with his personal journey, roles that gave him the chance to explore more complex characters, themes, and stories. Whether it was in television, film, or on the stage, he continued to evolve as an actor and comedian. But now there was a deeper sense of purpose behind each project. He also became more vocal about the struggles he had faced and the lessons he had learned. Kenan used his platform not just to entertain, but to inspire others who might be going through similar challenges. He began speaking openly about his mental health, the pressures of fame, and the importance of finding balance. By doing this, he not only connected with his audience on a more intimate level, but he also created a space where others could feel safe to talk about their own struggles. Kenan understood now that true strength came not from hiding your vulnerabilities, but from embracing them. In time, Kenan's influence grew beyond just his work on SNL or his acting projects. He became a role model, not just for aspiring comedians or actors, but for anyone navigating the complexities of life. His story wasn't just about the highs of fame or success. It was about the lows, the challenges, and the journey toward self-acceptance. Kenan had come a long way from the young man who had been desperate for success, and in many ways, he had found something far more valuable than fame, a sense of peace and fulfillment that no career accomplishment could ever provide. Looking back, Kenan was proud of what he had achieved. But more than that, he was proud of the person he had become. His story wasn't one of easy victories or constant success, but of growth, resilience, and ultimately finding contentment. It was a reminder that life was never just about the destination, but about the journey, the lessons learned along the way, and the people you meet and hold dear. And so Kenan's story continues as an entertainer, a father, a friend, and a man who had learned to embrace his past while looking forward to his future. He knew that the most important chapter of his life was still being written. The struggle to balance his many roles, to continue growing, and to seek happiness would never truly end. But Kenan was no longer running from it. He was embracing it step by step with the wisdom and confidence he had earned over the years. Through all of the twists and turns, the challenges and the successes, Kenan Thompson had found his truth. And in the end, that was more important than any trophy or spotlight. It was the knowledge that he had finally become the person he was meant to be.